The stars looked different when Jake Morrison first saw them through alien eyes. His ship, the New Horizon, had traveled for 6 months to reach this distant world that humans called Kepler-4 for to be. The planet hung in space, like a blue-green marble, surrounded by strange metal structures that glowed with soft purple light. Jake had seen many worlds during his time as a space captain, but none had prepared him for what waited on this one. The alien ship that approached them moved without sound or visible engines. It glided through space like a ghost, its silver surface reflecting starlight in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Jake stood on the bridge of his vessel, watching the alien craft dock with theirs through the main viewing screen. His crew of 25 humans waited behind him, their faces showing the same mix of excitement and fear that he felt in his chest. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez stepped up beside Jake, her tablet showing readings from the alien ship. She was the best scientist he had ever worked with, smart enough to understand things that made his head spin. "Their technology is incredible," she whispered. "No heat signatures, no electromagnetic emissions, nothing. It's like they're trying to be invisible." The airlock opened with a soft hiss, and the first alien stepped through. Jake had seen pictures and videos from other first contact missions, but meeting one face to face was something else entirely. The being was tall and thin, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow from within. Its large black eyes held an intelligence that was both ancient and sad. When it spoke, the words came not from its mouth but directly into their minds. "I am Vexai of the Zephyrian Council," the alien said without moving its lips. "We have watched your species for some time. We come with urgent warning." Jake found his voice after a moment of shock. "Welcome aboard the New Horizon. I'm Captain Jake Morrison. We're honored to meet you." The alien's expression changed to something that might have been horror. "Honor will not save you from what comes. Your species has made a terrible mistake. For over 100 of your years, you have been screaming into the void. Radio waves, television signals, music broadcasts. You send them out without thought of consequence." Lisa stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "Our transmissions are part of who we are. We've been trying to contact other intelligent life for decades, and in doing so, you have doomed not just yourselves, but possibly all life in this galaxy," Vexai replied. The alien's mental voice carried weight that pressed down on their thoughts. "There are things in the darkness between stars, ancient things that hunger for worlds like yours. They are drawn to noise, to the electromagnetic songs your people sing so freely. We call them the Devourers." Jake felt his blood turn cold. "Are you saying our radio signals attract some kind of predators?" The Zephyrian Council has maintained galactic peace for over 10,000 years by enforcing one simple rule: silence in the void. No civilization may broadcast beyond basic navigation signals. Those who break this law face extinction, either by the Devourers or by us, to protect the greater good. Lisa looked at her tablet, then back at the alien. "But surely there must be some mistake. We've been broadcasting for over a century and nothing has attacked us." "The Devourers are patient," Vexai explained. "They move slowly through the galaxy, following the trails of noise to their source. But they are coming, drawn by your world's constant chatter. Our deep space monitors have detected movement in the outer darkness. The swarm that consumed the Androlix civilization 3,000 years ago has changed course. It now heads toward your system." The bridge fell silent as the humans absorbed this information. Jake thought about Earth, about the billions of people who had no idea their love of communication might have signed their death warrant. He thought about the radio telescopes constantly scanning the sky, the satellite networks that connected their world, the music and television shows broadcast into space as messages of peace and friendship. "What do you want from us?" Jake asked finally. "Your immediate surrender to silence protocols," Vexai replied. "All transmissions from your world must cease within your 7 rotations. Your ships must be fitted with suppression technology. Your people must learn to live in electromagnetic silence, as we do. And if we refuse," the alien's large black eyes seemed to grow even sadder, "then we will be forced to eliminate your species before the Devourers arrive. It is a mercy we offer, quick death instead of the slow consumption that awaits noisy civilizations. We have done this 12 times before to younger species who refused to listen." Lisa and Jake exchanged glances. The weight of representing all humanity pressed down on them like a physical force. "We need time to consider this," Jake said, "to contact our governments and discuss your demands." "You have one of your days," Vexai replied. "After that, our fleet will arrive to enforce compliance." "We are sorry, Captain Morrison, we truly are, but the silence must be maintained." The alternative is too terrible to contemplate. Amy Chen stood before the largest assembly of world leaders in human history. The emergency session of the United Nations had been called within hours of receiving Captain Morrison's transmission from the distant alien world. Representatives from every nation sat in stunned silence as she finished reading the Zephyrian ultimatum. The great hall buzzed with whispered conversations in dozens of languages as the implications sank in. "They want us to stop being human," said President Miller of the United States, his voice echoing through the chamber. "They want us to cut our tongues out and hide in the dark like frightened children." Amy adjusted her glasses and looked down at the alien device Morrison had sent back with the diplomatic courier ship. The small crystal contained detailed schematics for the suppression technology the Zephyrians demanded they install on every transmitter on Earth. The technology would essentially create a bubble of electromagnetic silence around our planet, she explained. No radio, no television, no satellite communications, no internet signals going beyond our atmosphere. Chancellor Brown of Germany stood up. "What about our deep space missions? Our communication with the Mars colonies? The asteroid mining operations? All would have to be terminated or converted to this alien technology," Amy replied. "According to their specifications, we could maintain minimal contact using their quantum entanglement communicators, but only for essential navigation and emergency purposes." The Indian representative raised her hand. "And what guarantee do we have that these devourers actually exist? This could be an elaborate deception to force us into submission." Amy had been dreading this question. "Dr. Rodriguez is analyzing all available data, but we have only the Zephyrians' word. They claim to have protected the galaxy for 10,000 years, but we have no way to verify their claims." Meanwhile, halfway around the world, Ben Parker was doing exactly what the aliens had demanded humanity stop doing. From his radio observatory in the mountains of Colorado, he was preparing to broadcast Earth's most beautiful music into the depths of space. Ben had spent 5 years working on this project, carefully selecting pieces that represented the best of human creativity and emotion. "You can't do this, Ben," said his assistant, Kate Wilson, as she watched him calibrate the massive radio telescope. "The whole world is talking about this alien threat. If you broadcast now, you could doom us." Ben looked up from his controls, his weathered face showing the determination that had driven him to become both a musician and a scientist. "Kate, if we're going to die, at least let's die as humans. Music is what separates us from the machines, and the silence. If these aliens want to take that away, then maybe we're not worth saving anyway." Kate grabbed his arm. "But what if they're right? What if these devourers are real? Then we'll face them with a song on our lips," Ben replied, his fingers dancing across the keyboard that would send Beethoven's Ninth Symphony racing toward the stars at the speed of light. Back on the New Horizon, Dr. Lisa Rodriguez was discovering something that made her stomach turn with worry. The Zephyrian historical records that Vexide had reluctantly shared contained references to civilizations that had simply vanished from the galaxy, not destroyed by war or natural disaster, but gone as if they had never existed at all. "Look at this entry," she said to Jake as they studied the alien data files. "The Melodians were a species that loved music just like humans do. According to this record, they ignored Zephyrian warnings and continued broadcasting their songs into space. Then one day, their entire system went dark. No distress calls, no battles, nothing. Just silence." Jake frowned as he read the translation. "It says here that when the Zephyrian fleet arrived to investigate, they found the planets completely empty. Not destroyed, just abandoned. As if every living thing had simply walked away and never come back." Lisa pulled up another file. "The same thing happened to the Vocalites, the Sonic Confederacy, and 8 other species over the past 3,000 years. All of them were what the Zephyrians call noisemakers, civilizations that refused to accept silence protocols, or maybe," Jake said slowly, "civilizations that the Zephyrians eliminated for refusing to comply." The thought hung in the air between them like a poisonous cloud. If the Zephyrians had been systematically destroying species that refused to give up their right to communicate, then humanity was facing not just alien demands for silence, but potential genocide disguised as protection. On Earth, the debate in the United Nations had grown heated. Some nations argued for immediate compliance with the alien demands, pointing to the advanced technology and obvious power of the Zephyrian fleet. Others, led by several smaller countries that had fought long battles for freedom of expression, refused to consider surrender. "We cannot and will not silence our people," declared the representative from Costa Rica, a small nation with a proud tradition of peace and democracy. If these aliens wish to destroy us for singing, then let them try. We will not voluntarily enter the grave they have dug for our voices. Amy watched the debate with growing despair. Humanity was dividing just when they needed unity most. Half the world wanted to fight for their right to communicate, while the other half was terrified of attracting the mysterious Dever. OURERS. In Colorado, Ben Parker made his decision. His fingers pressed the transmission button, and the opening note of Beethoven's masterpiece began their journey into the cosmic void. The music carried with it all the hope and defiance of a species that refused to be silenced. As the symphony reached the stars, monitoring stations around the world detected something unexpected. The transmission was being amplified somehow, growing stronger as it moved away from Earth rather than weaker. Dr. Rodriguez, watching from the New Horizon, saw the readings and felt her heart race with a terrible realization. The aliens had been right about one thing. Humanity's transmissions were indeed having an effect on the fabric of space itself. The space around Earth began to sing. Dr. Karen White watched in amazement as her instruments detected something that should have been impossible. The radio waves, television signals, satellite communications, and Ben Parker's musical broadcast were not spreading out and weakening as they traveled through space. Instead, they were combining into patterns that made the very fabric of reality vibrate like the strings of a vast cosmic instrument. "This is incredible," Karen whispered to her colleague at the Deep Space Monitoring Station in Australia. "The electromagnetic signals are creating standing waves in space-time itself. It's like the universe is resonating with our transmissions." Halfway around the world, Ben Parker felt the change too. His radio telescope was picking up echoes of the symphony he had broadcast, but they were coming back stronger and more complex than before. Harmonies that hadn't existed in the original composition were weaving themselves into the music, as if space itself was adding its own voice to the song. On the New Horizon, Captain Jake Morrison stared at readings that made no sense according to everything humans knew about physics. The area around Earth was glowing on their sensors, pulsing with patterns of energy that seemed almost alive. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez worked frantically to understand what was happening, her scientific mind struggling to comprehend the impossible. "Data, the Zephyrians are panicking," Lisa reported, watching the alien ship through their viewports. "Their vessel is shaking, and their stealth technology seems to be failing. Whatever is happening around Earth is affecting their systems." Vexi appeared on their communication screen, the alien's usually calm demeanor replaced by something that looked like terror. "What have your people done?" the Zephyrian demanded. "The readings from your world show massive spatial distortions. You have accelerated the timeline beyond all predictions." Jake leaned forward. "What timeline? What aren't you telling us about these errors?" The alien hesitated, its large black eyes reflecting an inner struggle. "The entities we call exist in the spaces between dimensions. They are drawn to electromagnetic silence, not noise. For 10,000 years, our silence protocols have been weakening the barriers that keep them in their realm." Lisa felt her world shift as the implications hit her. "You've been doing exactly the wrong thing. The silence hasn't been protecting the galaxy, it's been making it vulnerable." "Impossible," Vexi replied, but uncertainty colored its mental voice. "The Council's wisdom spans millennia. Silent civilizations survive while noisy ones disappear. Because you destroy the noisy ones," Jake said bluntly. "Those civilizations didn't vanish because of devourers, they vanished because you eliminated them to maintain your force peace." Before Vexi could respond, alarms began blaring throughout both ships. The space around them was filling with dark shapes that seemed to absorb light itself. The devourers had arrived, emerging from tears. In reality, that opened like hungry mouths in the vacuum of space. On Earth, Ben Parker watched his instruments spike as the creature's presence registered on his equipment. But something strange was happening. The music he had broadcast into space was creating a barrier of resonating energy that the dark entities couldn't penetrate. Where the song was strongest, the tiers in space began to close. "My God," Karen White breathed as she observed the phenomenon from her monitoring station. "The transmissions aren't attracting them, they're repelling them. The electromagnetic activity is strengthening the dimensional barriers." Amy Chen received the news just as the Zephyrian fleet dropped out of hyperspace around Earth. Dozens of silver ships arranged themselves in attack formation, their weapons charging for what their commanders believed would be a mercy killing of humanity. But the approaching devourers changed everything. The alien fleet's stealth technology, designed for absolute electromagnetic silence, made them invisible to human sensors, but perfectly visible to the interdimensional predators. The Devourers flowed toward the Zephyrin ships like living shadows, their hunger focused on the vast quiet spaces that surrounded the alien vessels. Commander, the smell of the Zephyrian fleet watched in horror as his outer ships began to disappear, not destroyed by weapons or explosions, but simply consumed by darkness that left nothing behind. The creatures that his people had feared for millennia were not attracted to noise at all. They fed on silence, on the absence of life and energy that the Zevarians had spent 10,000 years creating. All ships, begin emergency transmission protocols, Exmal ordered, his voice breaking with the realization of their mistake. Activate every communication system, fill the void with signals. But the Zephyrian technology was not designed for such purposes. Their ships had been built for stealth and silence, not for the kind of vibrant electromagnetic activity that was protecting Earth. One by one, the outer vessels vanished into the hungry darkness as the Devourers fed on the quiet spaces between the stars. On Earth, Ben Parker made a decision that would change the course of the battle. He opened his communication channels to every radio station, television network, and internet broadcaster on the planet. "This is Dr. Ben Parker at the Colorado Deep Space Observatory," he announced. "I need every transmitter on Earth to broadcast. At maximum power, send everything, music, voices, data streams, anything that makes electromagnetic noise. Our lives depend on it." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Radio DJs began playing the loudest rock music they could find. Television stations broadcast at full power. Internet providers opened their bandwidth completely. Cell phone networks transmitted at maximum capacity. The cacophony of human communication rose from Earth like a protective shield, creating patterns in space that the Devourers could not penetrate or consume. The dark entities, faced with the brilliant electromagnetic symphony emanating from the human world, began to retreat toward the silent Zephyrian ships. The very noise that the aliens had feared for millennia was humanity's salvation and their doom. Lisa Rodriguez, watching the battle unfold from the bridge of the New Horizon, finally understood the terrible irony the Zephyrians had been creating. A galaxy-wide feeding ground for these creatures, she told Jake. Every civilization they silenced, every species they forced into electromagnetic darkness, became easier prey for the Devourers. The Song of Earth grew stronger, and the darkness began to retreat. The truth spread through the Zephyrian fleet like wildfire. Young science officer Kilanara accessed classified data files that the Council had kept secret for thousands of years. Her discovery sent shockwaves through every ship as the evidence became undeniable. The mysterious disappearances of entire civilizations had not been caused by devourer attacks on noisy species, but by the creatures consuming worlds that had been forced into electromagnetic silence. "The pattern is clear," Kilanara transmitted to her fellow officers as she shared the forbidden records. Every world that vanished was under full silence protocols. The Androlics, the Melodians, the Vocalites, all of them had submitted to our demands for quiet before they disappeared. The noise-making civilizations we destroyed ourselves never attracted devourers at all. Commander Dexmel felt his worldview crumbling as he read the data. For his entire military career, he had believed they were protecting the galaxy from an ancient threat. Now he realized they had been weakening it, creating vast, empty spaces where the interdimensional predators could feed unopposed. On the bridge of his flagship, Elder Vexai of the Council stared at the readings from Earth with growing understanding and horror. The human transmissions were not just repelling the devourers, they were actually healing the tears in space-time that millennia of enforced silence had created. The electromagnetic symphony rising from the blue world was knitting reality back. "Together we have been fools," Vexai said to the other council members gathered around him. 10,000 years of wisdom, and we understood nothing. The noise we feared was the very thing that could have saved us all, but not all Zephyrians were ready to accept this revelation. Traditional faction leader Mordeth commanded a third of the fleet and refused to believe that their ancient ways were wrong. "This is human trickery," he declared over the fleet communication channels. "They have somehow learned to control the devourers, to use them as weapons against us. We must destroy their world before they turn these creatures loose on the entire galaxy." The Zephyrian fleet split into two factions as ships chose sides. Those who believed the evidence about their mistake began trying to modify their stealth systems to create noise instead of silence. Others, led by Mordeth's traditionalists, prepared to attack Earth regardless of the consequences. On Earth, Dr. Karen White and Ben Parker worked together to coordinate the global transmission effort. Every major city had become a node in vast network of electromagnetic activity that painted space around their world with complex patterns of energy. The effect was beautiful and terrifying. Reality itself seemed to be singing along with humanity's chaotic chorus of voices. "We need more diversity in the transmissions," Karen explained to the emergency council that had formed to manage the crisis. "The Devourers seem to be repelled by complexity and randomness. The more different kinds of signals we broadcast, the stronger our protection becomes." Amy Chen coordinated with governments around the world to open every communication channel imaginable. Amateur radio operators broadcast from their basements. Shortwave enthusiasts sent signals across the continents. Even old analog television stations were brought back online to add their voices to the growing symphony. The effect on the Devourers was dramatic. The creatures, which had been flowing toward the silent Zephyrian ships like hungry shadows, began to retreat from the noise and chaos emanating from Earth. They moved back toward the edges of the system, seeking the quiet spaces where they could exist and feed. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez made another crucial discovery while analyzing the alien data. Aboard the New Horizon, the Devourers aren't just feeding on silence, she told Captain Jake Morrison. They're feeding on the emptiness that silence creates. When civilizations stop communicating, stop expressing themselves, they become hollow. That's what these creatures consume, the absence of life and creativity. Jake watched the battle unfolding around them as Zephyrian ships fought each other while the Devourers circled like cosmic vultures. So the more we express ourselves, the more alive we become, and the less appealing we are to these things. Exactly. It's not about the electromagnetic spectrum at all. It's about the life force that those transmissions represent. Every song, every story, every message of love or anger or hope that we send into space makes us more real, more solid, harder for interdimensional predators to digest. The revelation changed everything. What the Zephyrians had seen as dangerous noise was actually the universe's immune system fighting back against entities that fed on emptiness and despair. The chaotic, uncontrolled babble of human communication was not a threat to galactic peace, it was the foundation of galactic survival. Young Killanara took a desperate risk. She broke away from the main Zephyrian fleet and approached the New Horizon under a flag of truce. Her small ship, modified to broadcast random noise instead of maintaining stealth, managed to reach the human vessel without being consumed by the Devourers that still circled the area. "I request permission to come aboard," she transmitted to Jake Morrison. "I have information that could save both our species, but I can only share it in person. My people's telepathic communication makes it too easy for the Council to monitor and suppress." Jake looked at Lisa, who nodded. They were facing the possible extinction of all intelligent life in the galaxy. Any information that might help was worth the risk of trusting a young alien who was defying her own people. As Killanara's ship docked with the New Horizon, the battle between the Zephyrian factions reached its climax. Mordith's traditionalist forces launched their attack on Earth, their weapons charging for a bombardment that would silence humanity forever. But the progressive faction, led by Commander Thexmel, moved to intercept them. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance as alien fought alien in the space between worlds, while the Devourers waited in the darkness for one side to fall silent forever. Killanara stepped aboard the New Horizon with information that would change the course of the war. The young Zephyrian scientist carried data crystals containing 10,000 years of suppressed research, evidence that the Council had hidden from their own people to maintain power and control. "The truth is worse than you know," she told Captain Jake Morrison and Dr. Lisa Rodriguez as they gathered in the ship's briefing room. "The Council didn't just enforce silence to protect the galaxy, they did it to protect themselves. The Devourers feed on silence, yes, but they also serve those who maintain that silence. The Council has been trading the life force of entire civilizations to keep these creatures from consuming Zephyrian worlds." Lisa felt sick as she understood the implications. They've been feeding other species to the Devourers to keep their own people safe. For millennia, Killanara confirmed. Every civilization they forced into silence protocols became easier prey. When the Devourers consumed those worlds, the Council's power grew stronger. They believed they were maintaining cosmic order, but they were actually running a protection racket on a galactic scale. Jake watched through the viewports as the civil war raged between Zephyrian factions. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes, while the Devourers moved through the battlefield like sharks, consuming the wreckage and the silence that death created. "How do we stop them?" "We need to unite the galaxy in song," Killanara said. "Not just Earth, not just progressive Zephyrians, but every species in the Council. The Devourers cannot exist in a universe that vibrates with life and communication, but it has to be genuine expression, not coordinated silence. On Earth, the global transmission network was reaching unprecedented levels of complexity. Ben Parker had connected with musicians, scientists, and communicators from every continent. The resulting electromagnetic symphony was unlike anything the universe had ever heard, a chaotic, beautiful mixture of human creativity that painted space around their world with patterns of pure life. Dr. Karen White monitored the effect from her observatory, watching as the barriers between dimensions grew stronger with each passing hour. The transmissions are creating a resonance cascade, she reported to the Emergency Coordination Center. Every signal we send out is being amplified by the fabric of space itself. It's like the universe wants to sing along with us. Amy Chen faced an impossible choice as reports came in from around the world. The traditional Zephyrian faction under Mordith was preparing for a final assault on Earth, their weapons capable of cracking the planet open like an egg. But if humanity stopped broadcasting to take defensive action, the protective field around their world would collapse and the Devourers would consume everything. We have to keep transmitting no matter what, she told the assembled world leaders via emergency video conference. Even if they destroy our cities, even if billions die, the survivors have to keep broadcasting. It's the only way to save not just humanity, but all life in the galaxy. The decision was heartbreaking but necessary. Earth's military forces would defend the planet as best they could, but the primary mission was to maintain the electromagnetic shield that kept the Devourers at bay. Commander That's-More led the progressive Zephyrian faction in a desperate battle against his own people. His ships, modified to broadcast noise instead of maintaining stealth, were harder for the Devourers to target, but also more vulnerable to traditional Zephyrian weapons. The space around Earth became a three-way battlefield as aliens fought aliens. While interdimensional predators fed on the chaos, Elder Vexai watched the battle from his command ship, his ancient mind struggling to accept how wrong they had been. The civilization he had devoted his life to protecting was built on a foundation of cosmic genocide. Every world they had silenced, every species they had destroyed for making noise, had been an offering to creatures that fed on emptiness and despair. There must be another way, he transmitted to both factions of his fleet. We cannot destroy ourselves fighting over past mistakes. The humans have shown us the truth. We must find a way to unite against the real enemy. But more was beyond reason. The traditional faction leader had spent his entire existence believing in the righteousness of galactic silence. To accept that this was wrong would mean accepting that his life had been meaningless, that every action he had taken had made the universe a darker place. The humans have infected you with their chaos, Mordith replied over the communication channels. They must be silenced before their noise spreads to other worlds. The old ways are the only ways that work. The battle reached its climax as Mordith's forces broke through the progressive faction's defenses and began their bombardment of Earth. Energy beams capable of vaporizing mountains struck the planet's surface, but something unexpected happened. The areas where humans were broadcasting most intensely, the major cities with their radio towers and communication networks, were protected by fields of resonating energy that deflected the alien weapons. The Zevirian attack beams, designed to silence noisy civilizations, simply could not penetrate the electromagnetic symphony that humanity had created. The more Earth sang, the stronger its defenses became. Ben Parker, broadcasting from his mountain observatory, watched enemy fire rain down around him while his position remained untouched. The music he was sending into space had created a bubble of safety that no weapon could penetrate. This is incredible, he transmitted to Karen White and the global network. The song itself is protecting us. The louder we get, the safer we become. Lisa Rodriguez, analyzing the battle data from the New Horizon, made the final connection that would change everything. The Devourers aren't just repelled by our transmissions, she told Jake and Kilanara, they're being transformed by them. Look at these readings. The creatures that come too close to Earth's electromagnetic field are changing, becoming something else. The dark entities that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia were being forced back into the light, their hunger for silence replaced by something that looked almost like curiosity about the chaotic beauty of human expression. The galaxy learned to sing in the span of a single day. What began as humanity's desperate defense against alien demands for silence became a cosmic awakening that spread to every corner of known space. The electromagnetic symphony rising from Earth acted like a beacon, calling to suppressed civilizations throughout the Zephyrian-controlled territories. Ben Parker watched his instruments in amazement. As responses began arriving from distant star systems, the signals were faint at first, tentative attempts by species that had been forced into silence for thousands of years. But as word spread that the ancient prohibitions had been broken, the trickle became a flood. "We're receiving transmissions from the Centauri system," Dr. Karen White reported from her observatory, "and from Vega, Altair. Dozens of other star species we never knew existed are adding their voices to the song." The effect on the Devourers was immediate and dramatic. The interdimensional predators, faced with a galaxy suddenly alive with communication and expression, began to retreat toward the empty spaces between star systems. But even there they found no refuge. The resonance field created by countless worlds singing together filled the void itself, leaving no quiet corners where the creatures could hide and feed. Captain Jake Morrison coordinated the final phase of the battle from the bridge of the New Horizon. The traditional Zephyrian faction under Mordith was making one last desperate attempt to silence Earth, but their weapons had become useless against the planet's electromagnetic defenses. Every shot they fired was absorbed or deflected by the resonating energy field that humanity's transmissions had created. Elder Vexai made a choice that would define the future of galactic civilization. Breaking 10,000 years of tradition, he opened all communication channels on his flagship and began to broadcast. Not the telepathic whispers that Zephyrians used among themselves, but loud, chaotic electromagnetic signals that filled space with the equivalent of alien shouting. To all ships of the Council fleet, he transmitted on frequencies that had been forbidden for millennia. "I have been wrong. We have all been wrong. The silence we maintained was not protection, it was surrender. Today we reclaim our right to make noise in the universe." The effect on his own people was electric. Zephyrian ships throughout the fleet began modifying their systems, converting stealth generators into transmission arrays. The species that had enforced galactic quiet for 10,000 years suddenly became its loudest voices, their technology amplifying the cosmic symphony beyond anything the universe had ever experienced. Mordith watched his traditional faction crumble as ship after ship defected to join the growing chorus. His ancient beliefs, the foundation of Zephyrian civilization, were being swept away by a tide of noise and chaos that originated from a primitive world on the edge of nowhere. "You are destroying everything our people built," he transmitted to Vexai in a final, desperate plea. "Without silence, without order, the galaxy will fall into chaos." "Perhaps," Vexai replied, his mental voice carrying a peace that had eluded him for centuries. "But chaos is better than the emptiness we created. Better a loud universe full of life than a quiet one ruled by death." Dr. Lisa Rodriguez made the discovery that would ensure the Devourers never threatened galactic civilization again. Working with data provided by Killer Nara and observations from the ongoing battle, she found the key to permanent victory over the interdimensional predators. "The creatures aren't just being repelled," she explained to Jake and the assembled representatives from both human and Zephyrian governments. "They're being transformed. The electromagnetic activity is forcing them back into phase with our reality, making them solid and vulnerable to conventional weapons." The implications were staggering. The Devourers that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia were only dangerous as long as civilizations remained silent. Faced with the full spectrum of life and communication, they became ordinary creatures that could be studied, understood, and if necessary, fought with conventional means. Amy Chan coordinated the establishment of the first intergalactic communication network from her position at the United Nations. Representatives from dozens of species worked together to create a system that would ensure no corner of the galaxy ever fell silent again. Every world would contribute its unique voice to the cosmic symphony, creating a permanent barrier against entities that fed on emptiness and despair. Ben Parker became the first director of the Galactic Music Project. His mountain observatory transformed into the hub of an endeavor that would preserve and share the songs of countless civilizations. The simple act of broadcasting Beethoven's Ninth Symphony had grown into something that would unite species across the stars. The final confrontation with Mordith came not through violence, but through music itself. As the traditional faction leader prepared to ram his ship into Earth in a suicide attack that would silence at least part of the human transmission network. His vessel was surrounded by the pure sound of galactic harmony. Thousands of species sang together across the void, their combined voices creating patterns of energy that penetrated even the most hardened Zephyrian shields. For the first time in his long life, Mordith heard beauty instead of chaos in the Electromagnetic spectrum, the noise that he had feared and fought against, revealed itself as the universe's natural state, not empty silence, but the rich, complex music of countless lives, expressing themselves freely. His weapons powered down, his ship's engines fell silent. In the end, he chose to listen rather than destroy. The galaxy that emerged from the crisis was transformed beyond recognition. The Zephyrian Council became the Galactic Harmony Initiative, dedicated to preserving and protecting the right of all species to communicate freely. Earth became the center of a new kind of civilization, based not on enforced quiet but on celebrated noise. Children from 100 worlds learned human music in schools that orbited distant stars. Alien composers created symphonies that incorporated the electromagnetic signatures of pulsars and quasars. Scientists discovered that the universe itself was more stable and predictable when filled with the chaos of living voices than when reduced to sterile silence. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez established the first university dedicated to studying the relationship between communication and cosmic stability. Her research proved that civilizations which expressed themselves freely were not just happier and more creative, they were actually strengthening the fabric of reality itself with every word they spoke and every song they sang. Transformed by their exposure to galactic harmony, became something unexpected, guardians of the very communication networks they had once sought to destroy. The creatures that had fed on silence now protected the songs that filled the void, ensuring that no corner of the universe would ever fall quiet again. Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the New Horizon, 5 years after first contact, watching Earth shine in the distance. The planet glowed with the light of countless transmissions, its electromagnetic signature visible across half the galaxy. Humanity had found its place in the cosmic community, not as silent observers but as the species that taught the universe to sing again.